I'm a bit of a desktop guy. I've been working this space in my current role for 5 years, 6 years. And look, about 18 months ago, all this cloud stuff was starting to happen. And really, I was feeling a bit left out. The server guys were okay. The service guys were okay. But us poor desktop guys, we're doing great stuff. It's where the users touch the keyboard. That, to me, is my environment I live. So I was feeling a bit left out of it. And then about 12, 18 months ago, this team popped up and they said they have cloud-based management for the desktop. That spiked my interest. 12, 18 months on, I'm still pestering them. I still want more features. I want them quicker. I want to make the management of my desktops that my users have a lot easier. I want to do it with the cloud. And this session today is all about that. My name's John Pritchard, Optimised Desktop Specialist. I'm based out of Melbourne. Been with Microsoft coming up 14 years next January. And it's been an amazing period of change. The guys who did the consumerisation of IT session this morning spoke about what life was like in the year 2001. And, you know, that was a pretty good year, but now we've moved on. What's it like a decade later? And here we are talking about managing our users' desktops without deploying anything, without putting a server out there, without having admins trained and developing a whole infrastructure and service to do this job. So we're going to have a great discussion about how that works today. But that's not all we're going to cover today. I've got a bit of discussion there for the partner space. Where do partners fit in all of this if we move to the cloud? Where do you as a consumer fit in this? I know if you're like me, you're not just looking after your own PC at home, you're looking after the kids, the relatives, the mum, the aunt, the uncle, the friends down the street. Where do I fit into this? Where does the enterprise fit into this? I'm at work, I've got 1,000 PCs. This Intune thing, it's a consumer stuff, isn't it? It's small business stuff. How can it help me? So we've got a lot to cover in that. Like I said, I'm up for a challenge. My biggest challenge is to take the enthusiasm for what I think is one of the biggest changes to the desktop since we released that 32-bit operating system in '95, all the way through to what are we doing and where are we going. It's one of the biggest changes for the desktop space that puts us, as the desktop, back in this cloud story. It's a lot of fun. It's a new technology, and we get to do good stuff. I'm going to show to you today the Windows Intune, the beta release. This is the Windows Intune V Next. Out available now is the subscription service. That's Windows Intune V1. And between V1 and the beta of V Next, effectively the V2 release, we've done some great things. But we only launched in March. And here we are, we're already in the beta stages for VNext, and we're doing great stuff. We're deploying applications. Think of how long it took to get to that capability with something like SCCM, or SMS as it was in those days. So that's going to raise another question. Where do I fit in with SCCM? Am I out there to cannibalise an SCCM? And I want to make it really, really clear. The answer is no. We are there to work with SCCM. It's a roadmap product. It's going to be a product that is a companion product, and then a discussion later about what are all the features. I'm sure you'll be asking for all the things that I'd like to ask for and like to see in the products. It'll come over time. It's a roadmap. We're lucky to be able to see the start of this roadmap. And today I've spoken to a few in the audience. Most of you haven't seen Intune, so that's great because I get to show you all good stuff, except to the guys right down here in the front, who I think I'll just hand over the presentation to halfway through because they're already working with it now. I've set them up and they're having calls with the product team next week, so I think I'll just pass over to them now. I can sit down, get a cup of coffee, and we can all enjoy the presentation. So we've got a great range of experience here, great product, great opportunities, roadmap, future discussions. It's almost like something you want to lead into a beer and wine discussion afterwards as to all the good stuff we could do with it. I'm not going to oversell the product. It's not the cure for any known disease that I'm aware of. It's pretty good stuff and exciting in the cloud. So let's get started. So what are we going to cover? I think I've spoken about most of that already. We're going to look at Intune. We're going to see it in action. I'm going to actually take it a bit further. I said about the view of a consumer and the view of the small home management process we all go through to look after those PCs. I'll show you what I do as well. We're going to have a look at the client. I'll talk a little bit about the deployment process. We do need to get a client onto a PC. In the chicken and egg scenario, well, we need to have something out there to begin this process management. And finally, talk about how to purchase and pricing and what we can do with the future resources. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? We have lots of machines out there. The problem I'm not trying to solve is the well-managed machine. If you have SCCM working in your environment now, that is terrific, and that is a full, rich feature management environment. And I'm going to work with that because the problem I'm going to solve is everything else around that. I don't actually have any customers, and perhaps there's some here in the audience today who can say, I'm 100% managed with SCCM. Every laptop, every Slate device, every PC, every desktop is managed by SCCM now. Because what I find is that people say, yeah, I'm 95%, I'm 98%, I'm 99%. I've only got a few, and those few aren't on the network. They're not connected, and we don't quite know what they're doing. An exec could have one, or a salesman could have one. A student could have one, a professor could have one. We don't know. So we're working in that space. How can we help manage in that environment? We want to work in those many physical locations. We want to be on the road, in the office. We want to be able to manage those devices. Management being patching, keeping them safe, knowing what they're doing, knowing what they're running, deploying stuff to them. We also want to solve the problem of where putting out that infrastructure of SCCM, the resources, the time is not available to do that. Sometimes I work with many educational environments. They don't have the staff to train. They can't buy the servers to deploy SCCM. It is a whole challenge to them, and as a result, many of their environments are unmanaged. So what can we do to help? And that's where really Intune fits. Where we want to lead to is a predictable outcome, a managed environment, a view of your assets. It's going to be, and I'll show you some of the features later, not as feature-rich as SCCM, but for an unmanaged environment, it's starting to bring control to the chaos. That's where I see Intune fitting. So what can Intune do? As a service, we talk about management. Well, we need to make sure they're safe. So malware protection, firewall, scanning, all of those things we can do. We can make sure the updates get out there. So we look at the update environment. We can make sure that those updates and patches that are valuable to the sustained continuation of those PCs, they get there. We can provide remote assistance, and the points I've got here are for the beta release we're trialling now, because we also have the ability to do remote tasks. And what does that mean? If you need to run a scan on a machine remotely, you can do so. If you need to reboot that machine remotely, you can do so, all from the Centre Service Console. Inventory, that's absolutely vital. We need that. So we need to know what hardware, what software. We take that a bit further because we can actually give you a view then into your licensing. And you can take what you've got installed and compare it to what licensing and you have covered under your licensing agreements with both Microsoft and third party. This now gives you a reconciliation. And before anybody jumps up and leaves because I think we're going to steal all your data, it's all covered by ISO level standards of privacy and security. We do not see that in Microsoft. Nobody's going to come and knock on the door and say you need to buy X number of licenses or anything. That's not going to happen unless you share that information with us. We do not see it. And finally, the last point there, we can deploy software. So now we're at the stage where we can take that MSI and EXE that's unattended and install, and we can deploy that out to the target machines with the beta release we're trialling now. So it's an absolutely great environment. When looking at the value of this, we start with the fact all we need is an internet connection. That internet can be the home ADSL service. It can be the cafe. It can be at work. But it's just an internet connection. I do not need to reach out with domain membership. We do not need to reach out with domain policies or connecting to a domain controller. So what are we doing? We're starting with an internet connection. The philosophy behind Intune has grown up from the Windows Update Service team, the Windows Update team, and that is to deploy without infrastructure. Does that bring compromises? Currently, yes. Are we working on that? You bet. So what can we do at the moment? Always put around it, let's go back to a simple internet connection without a server, without any infrastructure on site, and a relationship between the PC and the cloud-based service. But like any steak knives presentation, there's a bit more to that. And that bit more is the fact that out of all the cloud services, Intune includes a Windows 7 Enterprise license. I'm not going to ask for a round of applause there, but it means that you can now standardise and upgrade the qualifying OSs on those desktops to Enterprise Edition. What does Enterprise Edition give you? It gives you BitLocker, AppLocker. It gives you a full business suite of management on that machine, all part of the subscription that comes with Windows Intune. That means that machines that have been running XP or, say, Vista Business and they haven't been wanting to move and upgrade, you can now standardise that OS to a leading business OS and going forward to whatever the future brings, because we have software assurance on that operating system as part of the subscription. You can upgrade. That now means that certainly if you're a partner who is looking to standardise a fleet of customer machines, they can now have Windows Enterprise on their machines, Windows 7 Enterprise on their machines, and you can standardise your image management and support on that. Again, this in Windows Intune, that one feature around supplying the enterprise license, it's often missed, but that was one of the key things that spiked my interest in this product 12, 18 months ago. Questions, if we could hold them to the end, please, thank you, that'd be great. Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier. I should have also said the most interesting ringtone on any phone. I think it'll just get a round of glares and embarrassment. So if you've got any phones that need to be stunned, turned off, whatever, if you can do that now, that'd be great. Sorry, I should have mentioned that at the start. So the last point there about quick returns. I'm a student of history, and people used to come up to me and say, what is SPQR? I used to see it in all the gladiator movies on the Saturday morning. What does SPQR stand for? And I had my view of it, Centus Populus Quae Romanus. So that was great, until I married an accountant. My accountant wife says to me, no, that's none of that rubbish from Latin. It means small profits and quick returns. That's what it means. All those Romans charging across Gaul, they were accountants. So now what we do is we say, let's apply that to our cloud service. We get a small expenditure and a quick return. From the point that you actually take up the Intune service, on the subscription, you can go online with a credit card, and you can take up the service to when you're actually deploying and managing, can now be measured in terms of minutes. It's a bit frightening. It's not a model we're used to working on. We're normally deploying servers, training IT admins, so on and so on. But now we can get this very quick return on our investment. That's what we mean by great results with a small investment. So the management experience, Windows Intune, it's a service I regard as both a client and a server service. And that server service is the management experience. And that's what commonly as IT folks we will see. It means, first of all, providing you've got a Silverlight browser, you can work anywhere. You don't have to come into the office. It fits into this work-life balance thing. You can be remote. If you want to do it from your phone, as long as it's got a browser that's capable, then those sort of possibilities are there. But we don't want to manage a lot of noise. What we want to do is manage the high-priority stuff. So what's a really good way of doing that? Well, colour is always a good start. We all stop at the red when we're driving a car. We all go with the green. We have traffic lights-based system, and we'll see that when we go through the console. Red, yellow, green. Red means action first. Green means we're okay. Multi-account administration. Ooh, that sounds a bit frightening. A lot of consumers won't see that, but when you nominate a partner to manage your service for you, to assist you, to be there, to be that IT brains trust in your company or at your home, they now have a single view of all the accounts they are registered with, and that's called a multi-account console. Partner value there, single pane of glass, multiple accounts to manage. Each of those accounts are customers and they look at them individually. Again, traffic light view, and I'll show you that too. We filter, we export, we save, we print, we report. We do a lot of the good stuff that you'd expect. Future versions will be able to enhance that, but at the moment we're looking at giving you the basic functionality. You can run a report, you can see the hardware, you can see the software, see the assets and the licenses. You can export that. Because often what we want to do is take that out to a spreadsheet and then start to manipulate it and look at the various PCs, what hardware have they got. So we've got some great stuff there. So let's have a look at that now. Okay. Check where I've got several consoles open, so I'll just make sure I'm on the right one. Yep. Okay. What I'm showing you here is now the Windows Intune Service Console, the management console. This is the view you get of the Intune service as an administrator. So the first up, what you see is this console in the overview mode, and you can see that we start off with a really straightforward red, yellow, green. Your eye goes to what's been happening. You look at things like the system status, and immediately you start to see things that have occurred, and you want to focus in there and say, okay, we've had a malware detected. We'll drill down on that in a minute after I've run through the console. But now this is giving you a quick view. We have, this has got about, it's a pre-populated demonstration environment, it has about 100 PCs in it, and we have all sorts of errors and stuff coming through. So we've got that, come back to that in a minute. We can see if we've got updates waiting to be deployed. Now, just like you might be used to with updates, you say, well, I want to approve it first, I want to test it first. Well, we can do that as well as allow you to do automatic distribution of all your updates. We have policy. I often get a confused discussion about what's a policy in an Intune environment when I'm used to talking about group policy objects in a domain or local policies on a workgroup machine. These policies are, I will refer to them as Intune policies. It's really a way for us to set a standard, repeatable framework around the management so that if we want to set scan times, if we want to be able to enable automatic distribution of updates and things like that, we roll all those repetitive tasks into a policy and then apply them. The other big thing is we apply them to groups. Not universal groups, security groups. Let's put all that into domain context. In Intune context, we have groups of computers, groups of licenses. We have Intune groups. So let's put that into these buckets of policies and groups. In this context are Intune policies and groups. We have agent health. So this is a bit of a red flag because if we have a few computers that aren't communicating, talking back to the Intune service, they're either off the network, they've been shut down, so on. They might have connectivity issues. We flag that. You'll see a lot here because this is, again, a demonstration system, so we have quite a few machines are actually just virtual machines stood up to populate the demo. Software, we can actually manage software deployment as well as software inventory. So we'll do that. But let's go back now and have a look at our malware. I hope that was just things moving around in the building. So the first thing we see when we look at this is we've had some form of malware attack. There's been a machine that's been compromised. So as an administrator, we've just come in as our daily view. We've seen this. So now what we want to do, and we see we've got this. Needs some follow-up. It's quite a severe one. And first of all, let's just say I haven't heard about this before. So what do I do as an administrator? Well, first thing I do is I want to learn about this virus. I learn about what's going on. And immediately Intune links me to the Malware Protection Center, and I can go and find out about what this is. So I've now got that extra bit of information. So this is both administration as well as providing a little bit of education. Luckily, for the examples here today, all viruses are basically for demonstration purposes only. But I have that security. So I can go in and have a look at it. And then I can say, well, let's have a look at the computers that need this follow-up. And we see we have a machine here, it's got a malware status, and we can now drill down into it further and further and start to explore what that machine is. And you can see happening on that left panel, my workspace is now, I'm flicking into a view of the computer. And we can see that. And the first thing I see is, well, I am out of date on my updates here. So again, could this be related? Well, it's certainly not good hygiene for my machines to be out of date, and I can have a look at what's missing. And it's filtered now my updates view to what's needed, and it's then given me the opportunity to approve and deploy the updates. I can go through and manually approve each of those updates as I require to that PC. Flip side of that is I can set up a rule that does that automatically, and I'll show you that in a minute. But from the point of view here, I've already explored the virus, I've already explored what updates are needed. So I'm starting to get that information, and I can now take action on it. I can see KB articles, I see more information. And if that's not enough, I can have a look at what else is going on. I get offered through the console a filtered view. And at each of these, as we go through the different workspaces, you'll see this different view, this filtering. So we're not cluttering up stuff that doesn't need to be done. An interesting bit of technology with Intune is that if you already have the update applied or it's not necessary, Intune agent actually connects back to the service, and as part of the metadata that's passed backwards and forwards, will say, I've already got it or I don't need it. Therefore, if you're in either of those categories, you won't get flagged as needing the update again. Just because you haven't physically deployed it as part of the console doesn't mean you have to go ahead and do it. It is smart enough to say, just take the differences and deploy those. So we've got all that view as well. Now as we go through our environment, we'll flip back up to the computer overview. And again, I'm coming through as part of my work. Now what I've done is I've said, I want to look at my computers. Bing, I've got, oh, that's a good word, Bing. So Bing, I've not had to search for this, immediately appears. Here's a view of my computers in my organisation. Again, the top-down quick view, and I can see what desktops, laptops, and everything else I've got there. It's brought up some key bits of information, the manufacturers, the operating systems that are running. So this is giving me a snapshot view of what's out there. And at each time, it's giving me links to take action or to view a bit further. So I can now have a look, say, at the XP machines. Who's actually running out there as XP? I've got the license and I've got the capability now to upgrade them. So maybe I should be looking at that and get a list of all those machines that are running XP. And sure, we can print this out. We might know these machines. They could be close to us or they could be in a remote office. But luckily, we can now go and export that view and save that as a CSV file, as well as being able to print it out. And we can go ahead and export that out and get a dump of that into a CSV, open up with Excel, and it's going to take a little while, so I'll let that run, and save that to my local hard drive. I can do this in the reporting and the exports across the multiple workspaces so I can get a view. So we've got those XP machines, we can see the hardware they're running, are they capable? And if we want to actually start to look at those machines now, I can slice and dice this view, filtering on those that are healthy, not healthy, those with updates or don't need updates, those with malware, those that need action, or those who just want to ignore it because they're all good citizens. Again, a very quick view of my organisation I can drill down for. Getting to that level through setting up the infrastructure and services elsewhere, you think of the stuff you've got to do just to get to this point. If this is working for the business and it's what you need, we have got there very, very quickly. So here's my view of my computers. Now, you'll see in this workspace under the all computers, I have all these groups of computers. These are, each of them, machines. I've created the group and I've put the machines in there. Because as you add a machine into the Intune service, it comes into the unassigned computers category. It's basically the default location. And at the moment, I don't have any computers in there. But if I have a look at, say, my other groups, I now can drill down onto each of those. And if I need to, I can now remove them from this group and move them somewhere else and put them in another group. So as people move, you can put them in different administration groups. You'll also see there, I can retire that computer if the computer's been sold off, if it's been decommissioned or I no longer want it in the Intune service. I can remove it and return that Intune license and subscription back into the pool, and I can then reallocate that to another computer. I can also, at this point, if I pick on a computer, do my remote tasks on it. And at the moment, our tasking consists of running things like a malware scan. And the other one I like there is the restart computer. So I can go ahead, maybe after I've deployed software, maybe a user is having some issues, I want to reboot that machine for them, I can do that from the central console. It's not full management, but it's certainly a very capable management environment. So my groups, I've now got them allocated. So let's have a look now at some of my updates. So with the updates now, I can actually start to give it new updates. Now I've shown you some of the updates. I can approve those and manage them. But you can see the updates are now categorized so that I can actually break down each of the updates into the various categories and then see, are they needed? Are they installed? Are they having a problem? Did they not install correctly? So each of those, we can have different filtered views of how our updates are and then get the report back. And of course, I've got the console view, the export view here on the side. So let's see if that other export did finish. So here we go, we're going to export a CSV file. So that's now taking a whole stack of data back there. Now I just did a summary view of that one group. So that would be exporting. I could now have a look in there with Excel, have a look at the computer names, everything like that. So we've got the updates. Another part of the update service, or actually I'll keep going on, I won't jump ahead. We want to protect these computers. Now, how did we detect that malware? What's the background behind that? Intune is great that it's leveraging a lot of the technology you're already familiar with. It's update service. It's forefront endpoint protection is the background engine for that. Asset inventory service, our MDOP offering, also available through SCCM. That's our inventory service for applications that we identify in the software section. So we're using all of that. Design configuration manager. We're using the operations manager agent as well. So we're using a lot of those technologies in providing this service. A lot of those are familiar technologies you'll know about, but they're now hosted up through the cloud. And with that, with the forefront endpoint protection, it becomes our malware protector. And it actually deploys, as part of the Intune agent deployment, will deploy the Intune forefront protection. And I'll get to show you what that looks like at the user console. So we can do all that. Now, how do we get our users and those actions? How do we get attention from them? That's called an alert. Conceptually wise, not unlike what we're used to with Ops Manager, and we can see with the alerts have already been identified and categorized. So we can now start to look at those alerts, look at the properties of each of them, and see what they are. and see what these alerts are doing for us. And do we need to now go ahead and take action on the status? Do we need to close that alert off? So we've now got the engines reporting alerts to us. And with that monitoring that's going on, you can see now that we're starting to see those alerts by category. So we can look at, say, the Windows alerts. We can look at Office. We can look at our desktop application environments. We can see what is actually being required. Remote assistance, and I don't have any here, when a user wants to get assistance and have remote control over the internet, they actually put a request in from the user console. That comes through as an alert to us at the administrative console. It's from there we start the actual process of looking after their machines. So we've covered that, and from there we drill down now and have a look at the endpoint protection, which is what we've done already. So let's have a look now at some of our software. Software, and you'll see there on the left, it comes out as two forms of software: detected and managed. With our detected software, this is all the software it finds out on the computers. And it'll give you the software listing, and you can see what's been deployed and where. You can see each of your installation counts, and then from that you can open up and go into the computers it's actually installed on. So that if you want to go and have a look at a computer that's running a particular piece of software, you can now start to drill down into this computer. And if say, you need to look at a computer, we'll see if we've got any there. We can do a bit of a search. We see, first of all, a little red flag comes up saying this has not been connected for a while. We have timings of basically 24 hours, 7 days, and so on. It flags how long since the last communication. But we can see that with this machine, we've now got a view of its software. And while we're in that per machine view, we can see what hardware it is. And this really interesting one called primary user. I've now got someone to call when I want to talk to them about their machine. I found that out. The primary user is basically the most recent and most common log on that machine has been recorded for us. So where there is a primary user, we can start to talk to them. Again, very useful information. We can go on and then have a look at the malware and any other configuration of the machine. But let's keep moving through. Oh, sorry, I forgot to complete that last one. Managed software. This is one of the new features of Windows Intune, the vNext beta release that's out there on trial now, and it is all available for trial, has limited time frame. You get about 10 PCs you can manage. Free download, don't have to sign up with a credit card or anything like that. So that's there. In this version, it's the managed software is software you are actually deploying. So in this, the software now you've loaded, and the loading of the software is very straightforward. You have an MSI, you have an exe. If you have command lines to make it silent or unattended, then you'll need those as well. Put that in. It does not take attended installs. This is unattended installs, silent installs. But it means you can take your standard MSIs, as long as they don't need a user prompt during the install that you can't put in the command line, or properties, you can now deploy that software. So what I can do is I can actually pick a piece of software, and then I can look at where it has already been installed and where I would like to deploy it. The deployment process is now under our control through an internet service. We can start to pick our groups of machines and just say we want to pick the execs, and then we start to look at how we want to install it. So we do want to do an install, and then what sort of timing? As soon as possible, 1 week. So we have a way of randomising. We don't have a schedule that's going to install at this time, because often the machines are internet connected, they're not consistently connected, but we can now set a deployment schedule to the point of view of saying as soon as possible, 1 week, 2 week, and so on. So we can do that to that point. So we have some customization with that, but because it's an internet service, I don't want people to think I can always guarantee a deployment will happen. There's still a lot of variables out there, and one of them could be the machine's not connected. So we can now deploy applications, and you can see that some of the ones that I've already got entered into the system here. The way it works is that you upload the application to a store. The deployment store at the moment is 2 gigabytes in the current release. That's still a lot of applications, and if you're putting applications in your base image for your users anyway, then we can have those in the store, ready to go, and then you can allocate them out to the groups. Licenses. This is the one I mentioned before about, do we get to see all your licensing information? No, we don't. This is your private information. But it gives us a capability, because we've got the inventory of software and hardware, we now have that inventory information. Let's go one step further, and let's enable you to reconcile that with your licensing agreements, and then get a report out of that that says, yes, I've got this number of items deployed, and this is how many I've got licensed. This can be done with Microsoft volume license agreements, or it can be done with third parties as well, as long as they have the web service to be able to connect to. So what we can do is add in an agreement, and I have one in here already. So we don't have any VL Microsoft agreements. Let's have a look at the one we've got. And we have an Adobe one that's been entered here on the demo system. And it says we have 10 licenses have been added to it. If I wanted to add another license agreement, I would require either to upload that through a CSV file for the license details in our Microsoft environment, or we'd need the agreement name, authorization, and enrollment number. Now that's generally held by procurement. It's part of the secure management of your license details. But that means your licensing information can now be used by yourselves in looking at it to say, how many licenses have I got? How many licenses am I licensed for? And start the discussion around the number of licenses you need and the number of licenses you're tracking. You may find numbers do not match what you expect, because you'll find Intune will pick up things like retail copies that people have bought and brought onto their machines. So you'll be able to look at a lot of the licensing details, and like I said, it's a great starting point. I have customers who do not have any idea what they've actually bought and what's been deployed and what people are using in that order. And it's rather frightening, because there's obviously a lot of money, time and effort goes into managing licenses and licensing software. To be able to move to this view really, really quickly without an infrastructure view is worth gold to many administrators. So policies now, and this is where it comes back to the management. And let's create a new policy and look at what we've got to do. What can we set in policies? Well, as you expect, we'd set the firewall. We can set the Intune Center settings, that is, who do you call when you've got a problem? You can enter those sort of details. So I won't go into that. But the client agent, if we want to create a client agent policy, we'll have a quick look at that one. And we give it a name. And here's some really interesting things. Would you like to have your endpoint protection service running on your Intune clients? That's your choice. If you'd like to stay with your existing protection environment, then that's okay. If you'd like us to actually take that off for you and remove it, as long as it's one of the prescribed list of agents we can remove, we will remove the existing one for you and put on the FEP, Intune FEP engine onto the machine. It's your choice. It's purely what you'd like to configure. You can see we do the scanning, we set all the time, the monitoring behavior, schedule, options. So what we have is quite a flexible environment here to help you manage your machines. All of this is great, and I think you'll find it's pretty comprehensive, even down to being if you'd like to join our SpyNet service and help with the reporting and updating. So with that and the user interface as well, we can now manage that important endpoint protection as well for you. So we've got that down, we set it up as a policy, the policy is set to actually be reviewed and then deployed. How do we deploy a policy? So we'll have a look at an existing one, and we've got a firewall one here. It's a very important, very descriptive configuration. So we allow that this can work in conjunction with your domain policies. I often get the point about which wins. If you want to think about it with the Intune policy, it works very, very similar to the traditional policies we're used to, in that once it's been applied, it runs a GP update. However, in terms of the hierarchy, the group policy object, if there is a conflict between an Intune setting and a group policy setting, the group policy object setting will win. It's very, very clear on that. Your domain rules and domain policy will win in the hierarchy over the group policy object. So from that point of view, your domain still rules, but where there isn't the conflict, the Intune policy can then be applied to your firewall, to your agent as it runs. So you've got this environment, and this becomes the management and setting the framework around it. Reports. Sorry about that. Reports. Now, like any good system, we want to get those reports out. We want to see what they are. Well, we have standard reports that have already been supplied with Intune, and we'll have a look at one of those now. But you'll see that we have the things we've already talked about. So we can do our reports for updating, for software, for licensing, see what's been purchased and so on. But even something like our hardware reports, we now start to develop the reports. We can select our computers. If they're in a grouping arrangement, like I mentioned earlier, we can select which group we'd like to report on, or we can report on all of them. And also you have the ability there to actually load a report. So once you've done a report, you can actually load that in. And so in this report, we wanted to have a look at all the machines with less than or equal to 1 meg of memory, 1 gig of memory. And maybe we want to have a look at machines. Why would we do that? Perhaps we're planning a deployment and we want to have a look at all the machines which are capable for Windows 7. So with the inventory information we've already got inside Intune, we can now very quickly run that report and get a view of all our machines, and then when we've seen it, we can load and save that report. And so this way we can now start to have a look at the machines, and of course, like I said earlier, we have the ability to export that. So with the running of the reports, we can now save them, look at them as CSV files, look at the machines and grab all the details out of it. Again, not one server has been deployed to get us to this point. So the last workspace I'm going to cover is the administration one. And when we start, we'll of course want to deploy our agent. Well, where does this agent come from? We have to get it from somewhere. Well, as you join the Windows Intune service and you get to the service console here, the administration workspace enables you to download your agent. And I'll actually show you this on the client, but this client software download is the Windows Intune agent. It downloads two things. It downloads the .exe, which is basically the agent, and the agent itself comes with a certificate. The certificate is to identify your service with that machine so that we know that that machine is part of the service you're paid for. That becomes very important because if you gave that out to everybody else, they'd all join your service and use up your licenses. So this is something you do want to keep secure, the certificate. Think of it as like almost like a bit of a password to your Intune service. It needs to be deployed with the executable. Can you do this unattended? Yes. Can you put it in the image? Yes. Can you do it remotely through other software distribution like SCCM and even group policy MSI distribution? Yes, you can do all that as well as walk up to it with a USB key and install it manually if you like. So this agent, once down there, will connect the workstation. It will then start the inventory process between the workstation and the actual Intune service. But also what we get there is all our alerts, notifications. I want to point out something with alerts. And I've mentioned about the different types of alerts, but what about who receives those alerts? And this becomes the thing. You have the ability under the Intune service to nominate other members to be administrators to receive those alerts. And alerts by type. You might have one person who does all the remote control alerts. You might have another one who does the malware. Or you might have someone else who does the update alerts, managing those. Or they could all be the same person. What you can do is enter their email address and then assign them the notification by category. So if somebody needs to see those critical alerts, they get them on the email and they get that alert. Where they are, wherever they get their email, they'll get that alert. But it also means that if it's a not critical one and it goes to someone else, the critical alerts person doesn't see it. There is filtering and control at this point. So all of the alerts, the recipients, all set up and managed through there. And the final one I would like to show you on this console is the automatic approvals. I mentioned about updates. I don't know about you, but the idea of approving every single update that comes through, especially after a patch Tuesday, doesn't really sound like a career I'd like to pursue. So what we can do is we can set up some automated rules. And those automated rules can be used in two ways. First of all, deploy them to your test group. Perfectly valid administration. You want to test it out with a couple of machines, automatically. Every update that comes out, you set up a rule, goes to your test group, those machines get it, and you can be happy with it, and then you can set up the automated rule to go by group, by group, by group. And this is the automated rules engine, so that you can actually set it by the categories. You can set it by so we'll take all category of products. We can then say define our alert level, maybe just the security alerts we want to automate. And then finally, we can put it into a lab group. So I've now leveraged my alert, I've now leveraged my group structure, and I can automate that so that every alert will now go in, and that becomes the automated alerting rules. This is not an uncommon, most of you have probably seen this before with WSUS, the managing those alerts. Some you want to push through, some you want to manage and check. We've got that option here as well. So that's been a bit of a run through on the console. It's pretty amazing. This is the beta releases. I keep stressing this is the next release. If you sign up to the subscription service, you'll get the V1 release. So let's now just have a flick over to getting hold of the actual software. So here I am. I'm signed in. And I will apologise if it does time out because these things happen. But this is my view. I've gone to the Microsoft Online Consumer Portal, Online Services Portal, and I've signed in, and I've come in here as my Hotmail address. It's my family one. I have an avatar called Barbara, who's my wife, who hopefully won't log in at exactly the same time in the middle of my demo. But I've come in here just as what you would see if you wanted to take up the Intune service. So this is the consumer view of the service. How do I get it? Well, I come in here, I see there's some really great stuff I can go and have a look at, but being that I'm an Intune sort of guy and I've got to manage some PCs, I want to actually go online and buy the service. So what I'm going to do, yep, there we go. So it's making me log in again. And I just want to come in with a different ID. Let's see if it takes me back there. Whew, I'm back. So I now wish to have a look at that service, go online, and I can see when I have a look at the available services, if I want to do the trial, this is where you'd go to for the trial, for the release. But I've really got to look after the kids' PCs, of which I do manage their PCs through this. And I want to go on and buy the service now and add it to my shopping cart. And this is what you see. This is the price, $15 per PC per month. That's the subscription service price for Windows Intune. I wanted to show you this because this is what you'll see if you go online to do it yourself. This is what you'll see if your customers want to buy the service. And this is the price they'll pay. And if they are in an enterprise agreement and they have volume license agreements with Microsoft, that's a different price and a different discussion again. But from the consumer point of view, looking after those PCs, remember this gives you, for that subscription, the Windows 7 Enterprise Agreement. It gives you access to the the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack. Then we start to get into a whole interesting discussion about what do I do with this enterprise license? Well, for starters, if you need some help, find a partner. We actually have partners nominated and you can join into the program there and become an Intune partner. They can then assist with that deployment process, that management, and they can then go in and manage and help you manage the service as well. They can look into remote PCs and such like. In fact, I have a few partners I'm working with. I've got Neil down here from Diligenet in Melbourne. These guys are charging along with the internet, the Intune service. They are offering services on top of this to assist people. Now that's the sort of area that from the partner model and the customer model, they can get help, they can get a partner, and they can do some great stuff. All those deployments, because you're working with people who have got the deployment skills and they are looking to help. So if you need to, if you'd like to talk to Neil's down the front here, please come up after the session and have a chat to him if you want to talk to him. If you're a partner yourself, and I know there was a few here in the audience, the Intune Partner Program, we've started small. We're basically around the launch time. This year, FY12, we're looking to grow. So don't stand back. So this is how we get it. We sign up, we get the Intune service. Once we have that, we'll go back and we can log in, we get all our details. Also with that Windows Enterprise license comes a Mac key, so you get your own key for deployment. So this is how you get the product. So it's been a quick run through at this point. So what does the client see? We've had a look at the service, had a look at the administrator, we've run through the console and seen some great capabilities. Now for the client view. What's the client see? Well, we just did a look at buying it, and that process of signing up, logging in through the online console, that's how we do it. If you have already have an enterprise agreement with Microsoft, you already have software assurance. A bit of the philosophy behind the purchase and pricing of that in the volume space, in the enterprise space, is you're not paying for something twice. Very, very simple, because it means if you already have a workstation that is covered by software assurance, well, obviously you've got the Windows 7 Enterprise bit, you don't need that. So there is a step-up price from that software assurance to the Windows Intune service. It's not the full $15. And that will depend on the agreement. The same for education, we offer pricing on that. I can't give one price out because obviously one size doesn't fit all, but be aware that we do have that. And so we're looking very hard to make sure people understand that it's about using the service. Enrollment package I saw from the client download screen when we're in the administrative work pane. That's where we download the executable and the certificate. That's the two components. That executable includes x86 and 64, and you can actually expand that out for the MSIs as well if you'd like to put it into an image or build it into an unattended deployment of the agent. It's pretty straightforward. I would say for most of you, if you're doing it at home, you'll do it for the kids, the family, whatever. And for around the office or around a larger deployment, the quiet commands that you'll see there are obviously going to come in really, really handy, as well as the extract. So we do deal with that, and we can certainly put it into images and unattended installs. So I won't go through an actual install process. But I'll actually show you what it looks like. Oh, I'll just go back to my other console. Okay, what I've got here, and I'm living a little bit out on the edge here. I actually have a very thin device there, a great little laptop I'm using. It's a solid-state disk laptop, and it's running a virtual PC, and inside that virtual PC, I've actually built my corporate image of my work machine. So this is my Microsoft image with the Intune client deployed. So now what I'm looking at is the control panel that shows the installed components of the Intune service that's running on a virtual machine. And inside that virtual machine, you'll see the top components there. And that's a little bit more than what I was talking about, a single exe. The way it works is when the agent deploys, it's about a 16 megabyte agent that deploys. It then goes down and pulls down those remote components, the other components it needs. So all up, you end up deploying, 4, 5, 6 components as part of the deployment, but it starts with a single agent and then brings down the other components that we use, like the forefront, like the remote control and all that sort of stuff. So you don't have to worry about that. That is actually taken care of for you, and I'll show you the network statistics of what it looks size-wise, so you can see that impact, and also roughly the update traffic as well. But this is looking at the control panel for the service. And on my desktop here, I have my Intune panel. What I've decided to do is expose this. You can keep it hidden from the user environment. And this is now what the user will see if you have exposed the panel and given them the right to run scans, check for updates. And for those of you who may be familiar with FEP or with Security Essentials, this is the console view that a user will see. The back end is FEP 2010, front end is a very familiar console. So the users can now, if you would like to, through the policy for the agent, if you'd like to enable them, they have the view now to scan their machines, look at their settings and so on. That's purely up to you. I've opened this quite up so that when they go to use it on a machine that's running under the Intune protection, the experience that we saw before as a virus, let's just pick one here. This is again demonstration. Yeah, let's run that. Looks a bit dodgy. Okay, here I am. I've tried to run the dodgy bit of code. What's happened? Intune's jumped in there. It said, it's unsafe to download, and I've blocked it. Want to go and learn more? Of course. So I'd go in there, explore, what have I done? It's running a FEP engine, so it would pop up. It would tell me, I've done the wrong thing, I'm not going to do it. Whether it's a .txt, a .zip, you saw there on the demonstration viruses I just used for this example, it can go and pick up each of those as well and give me that warning, prevent it. If it is installed, it will clean it as well, depending on how I've set up the service. Bottom line, protection. So my panel is now saying I'm at risk. I've been a naughty boy. So I can go and have my computer cleaned. But remember, I could be that central administrator and I could go and run that scan. I could go and reboot that computer if I want to. In fact, I must do that sometime for the demonstration. But knowing me, I'd get it the wrong way around, and halfway through my demo, the reboot would kick in. So I won't do that today. So this is the user's view, the client process. What does it look like when we actually go back to the bandwidth that I mentioned earlier? Here are some rough guideline figures. We can see that out of that 16 megabyte client, it's now a bootstrapper, and it's pulling down the balance there to roughly about 100 megabytes as the one-time installation cost. Like I said, this can be built into an image. It can be unattended deployed if you have another mechanism like System Center, Config Manager. You can do that as well. So you can do that. You then get your signature update traffic, patching, these are rough estimates, but it'll give you the feel for it. And with that, the traffic, with the ability to now have a rough idea, once you're started, this thing will just tick along in the background, much like you used to on your corporate environment. I can now go ahead and deploy software to that machine. I actually had a package set up, an SMS toolkit, an MSI, that I deployed to that machine. It actually took about 2 minutes to do. I'm not going to say that's a guarantee, but between me saying deploy to my test group, it was about 2 minutes before I got it. It was only a small MSI, but that was deployed as soon as possible. It's not a guarantee service, but at least we've got that sort of deployment there. So we've done that. The licensing and pricing, I really would like to make sure we understand we have the consumer pricing and we have the volume licensing agreements pricing. They are two different. Think of that for corporates and that environment. Another thing is the qualifying operating systems, XP, SP2, XP, SP3 professional and above. So basically Vista, Business, Enterprise, same with Windows 7. If you've got OEM editions, that is professional. If you buy that with a new PC, you can upgrade it. So the opportunity, let's come back to where this is going to be useful. At the moment, I see this as being covering a lot of the smaller businesses that were struggling to stand up the architecture they need and to get the skills and training. That can be everything from a small accounting firm, government or independent schools, all the way up to, say, a niche in an organisation where it's just not economical to extend out that domain infrastructure. If they can't do it, it doesn't make good rational sense to put a domain out there and all the VPN connections, etc., etc., etc. Intune is a great option to start that off. It's very much for the mobility, the remote workers, perhaps where there isn't a lot of good connectivity, intermittent connectivity. And it often opens up some exciting considerations. You've got that Windows 7 Enterprise license. You have 4 virtual machines you can run. You can take that with VHD boot and run, say, another environment supplied by an organisation you're contracting for. The whole BYOPC discussion now takes a new angle because a contractor can have that Intune license, Windows 7 Enterprise, on their machine. For the partners can now manage services. They can look at this across multiple customers and standardise their operating system so it's easier and quicker for them to deploy a single operating system. This business about, oh, I don't have enterprise, I've only got this, it goes away. It can standardise that world. It can give you a great asset management system at a short view. If you're merging with another company, you have offices or you're in a particular industry where you don't know what else is running out there, deploying the Intune agent gives you that view. You get that first touch. I'll just build those two. Here is where we are in terms of the functionality compared to SCCM. It's a very common question. I've got SCCM, what does Intune give me? If you've got SCCM, we are certainly not as feature rich or as deep in those features as SCCM. And that is obviously a superior product for all the functionalities and all the things you can do there. And with SCCM 2012, it gives you some great capabilities. But it's still in the Windows Intune, and I'm referring here to the vNext release, which is the beta release that's currently being trialled. We've got software deployment, we've got the remote tasks, we've got the inventory, we've got reporting. That's a lot of really good stuff inside the product now that you can have going in minutes. So it is a great... Where are we going? The new features. I'm sure we're all thinking of a few things we'd like. Guess what? So is the product team. How quick can we get them? Well, we're a very short release cycle. We released in March. We're trialling our next release now as the beta. We're already looking at functionality for future versions. And if you're like me and you've come up with a dozen things you'd like in there, I've already supplied that back to the product team as well. So there's great functionality will come. and it's great capability that's there today. So when we look at it, it's quick, it's easy, it gives you good stuff. If we can walk out with that, that'd be terrific. Lots of resources to have a look at. The best one is go online, grab the trial edition of the beta. So have a look at that, it's great. And share it amongst your friends, especially when you get that call 9 o'clock on a Friday night, you're about to go out, or somebody wants to have a problem with their machine and you just need to remote into it or something. It all happens to us at some stage. If they've got Intune, then it's part of your toolkit to actually go and look after that machine, especially for close relatives, or if sums of love, attention, meals, alcohol are involved. That's all good payment, but great resources there to make use of. And I think we've covered off most of the tracks now, being Friday. We've got a couple more sessions left. I really appreciate your being here today. Hopefully this has been interesting for you, a bit of eye-opener, a bit different. And if you're like me and you get enthusiastic about it, I look at it as being the roadmap of what it can be as well as what it can offer today. And to get excited as this, I can't remember being this excited since like AT 5 days, and they brought out this thing called the Active Directory. So it shows from 10 years ago plus to now, obviously I need to get out more. So get excited by it, look at it as a roadmap, use the functionality that makes sense, and enjoy it. It's a really great product. I don't have a touch mouse to give away, but obviously do your evals, please. Whatever that is. So do your evals. Please help us make this session better. And I'm around for any questions, comments. I'm happy to take them now or until I get kicked off the stage in 5 minutes. So thank you very much, and I hope it was a good session. One from before, so answer those until I get kicked off. Okay, let's see if I can paraphrase that back correctly. When you buy a new PC, do I have to purchase another license for the PC?
When you buy a new PC, you're basically paying for a license to Windows with that PC, which would be, say, Windows 7 Professional, OEM, and then you pay $15 for Intune, which pay to upgrade to Enterprise.
Okay, to say that back, when you purchase a new machine, you get a Windows 7 Professional edition that comes with that new machine. Say you've bought that from the local supplier and it comes with a major brand on it, and you'll buy Windows 7, that'll be Professional. That's what we call the OEM edition. Now that's a base, that's called a qualifying OS. And then the Intune subscription would be on top of that. As an individual going online with a credit card, that would be the $15 per PC per month. And that would then give you Windows 7 Enterprise. Windows 7 Enterprise is technically an upgrade over the qualifying OS, the OEM one. So if I've answered that correctly, you buy your machine, you go online yourself, you get the Intune license, and then you can download Windows 7 Enterprise, you have your Mac key, you're off and running to install and upgrade that machine. Okay, is that your answer? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. You guys got out easy. You didn't even get to present. I should have dobbed you in more. So, okay, question. Okay. Question there was roadmap, group policy for PCs. Do we have a wider range coming for managing Intune? Is that what you mean as well?
No, just any sort of Windows setting, maybe special registry setting, push out, any sort of thing, kind of policies, manage setting.
Okay, all right, if I've got this correctly, is there a roadmap for group policy settings, the expansion of them for the Windows 7. I haven't seen one, and I don't have any information on that. It would certainly that we're always expanding group policy objects. We've seen it from when we first moved to GPOs with Windows 2000 all the way through to where we are with Windows 7. I'm sure there'll be more, but I don't have any roadmap or information on that one, I'm afraid. So, any other questions? Yes. Okay. Question there was I said about the 2 gigabyte application store that's sitting in the cloud service. That's the current release at the beta. It is very much a discussed topic about expanding that, but you can also take applications out of it and then put in new applications. So at the moment, there's only 2 gig in the vNext in the beta release. There has been a lot of questions gone back about expanding that and making it bigger and how we can reuse it and stuff like that. Again, it's only 2 gig in the current release. Okay, question again?
Do you get PowerShell access into the Intune?
Okay, question there was, do we get PowerShell access into the Intune console? Not in the current release. That has been one that's been also a very requested feature around the APIs and opening up the APIs to the whole service. That has gone in as a request but hasn't been approved or declined yet, but it has certainly been requested. Okay. Sorry, could you say that again, please? Do we get alerts for the other virus scan? At the moment, we only support the FEP Intune agent and its reporting. I'm not sure how you mean. Can you give me a little bit more information on what you mean on that one?
That agent can look at any other virus scans, right?
Third-party virus.
Oh, okay. Can we get reports from third-party virus scans? Say we had another brand there that we hadn't elected to remove. Very good question. I believe can, but I can't confirm. Perhaps if I can grab your card, I will ask that one and get back to you separately on that. It's best I confirm how that works. If, say, we have a third-party antivirus, look, I believe so, but let me confirm how that works. Happy to take that one as a question on board and work with you. Yo. Supported operating systems, XP, SP3 and above. Windows Professional, Vista Business and Enterprise, Windows 7 Business. Sorry? Thin PCs, that is one we had a big discussion about the Windows 7 embedded OS, particularly for your environment. No, that's not on the current supported list. And that's the discussion I believe you'll be having with the product team, because we already had it with the embedded team as well, and we're talking about it. So, yeah, that's a very good point. It comes to... Yeah, it comes down to being the question there about running it on embedded OSs and stuff like that. It comes down to the right filters and preserving the image. We don't support that in the current release. It's something the embedded team are talking to the Intune team about now. So that's very, very good discussion, and that's what I think we'll be following up on. Yeah, question?
Is integration with BitLocker been a discussion?
Sorry, could you...
BitLocker?
BitLocker?
Backing up your keys and things.
Okay, can you just, sorry, phrase that again for me, please.
Backing up your BitLocker keys and things like that in a disconnected environment. It's hard for this directory to come back up your recovery keys.
Okay. Picking up recovery keys in BitLocker. When you build your BitLocker environment, particularly if this is built in a domain infrastructure, so you're building that on site, it has the ability through the group policy setting to do a backup of the recovery key back up to the Active Directory. Okay, then that would have to be then managed as virtually a standalone. If you're not doing a domain build, that's a work group build, and then you'd have to export the key yourself and manage that yourself. Yeah, can we back those up to the cloud? Not currently. Not currently. That is a good point. That's one I haven't heard of for the backup for Intune, because it's just a file. That's all it is, just a file. Because we overlap there with the BitLocker administration, the MBAM, Microsoft BitLocker Administration and Management, and that's actually provided as a service, a network service when you run BitLocker, but you still have to do that as a connected service. Other than that, the backup of keys would be to like USB device, external device. There's nothing there I can add in the current Intune. So, question?
In the previous version, there was no real integration with WSUS service.
Okay, question here was about integration with WSUS service. At the moment, we hold to the philosophy of infrastructure-less service. And that means we don't have any caching, although if you have a proxy cache or a caching service running, it actually improves the performance quite a lot, but that's not Intune aware. There isn't any integration with a server on-site or a branch cache in the current release. It's again, a hotly requested feature because we'd like to be able to offer integration. If you have a WSUS server, go and grab stuff out of that rather than going off to the through the update service. But we don't. We're staying fairly simple, and it is a one-to-one relationship between the machine and the internet. So it is simple, but it's also got the benefit that it is simple. But it doesn't have all the functionality because it's simple. Yes, the comment there was about the concern there of 20 machines all going off. Yes, that's where I put up those network stats to let you know the sort of traffic that's involved. 20 times that stats, unless you've got a caching proxy. If you have, you'll reduce that by something in the order of 90%. So it may be that when your deployment phase or your management phase, you might want to have, a caching proxy there because that operates independent of the Intune, but it does save you a lot of traffic. Question again, number 3, you're winning. I wish I had a giveaway for you.
Is it in the roadmap for Intune that it's going to essentially turn into a cloud-based domain?
If I can paraphrase that, is it in the roadmap for Intune that it'll turn into a lab-based domain? A cloud-based domain. Yeah, two very interesting points out of what you said there. Is it in the roadmap? The roadmap for Intune, and this is public, is to meet the capabilities of System Center Private, so that you've got your SCCM. Intune its roadmap is to meet that and equal it, and in some ways exceed it, but in many ways to meet that. So its roadmap is, as the product manager says, like an SCCM in the cloud. The other side of being a domain in the cloud, that's an identity discussion and about an identity service in the cloud, and that's something I haven't really entered into. I know the request because I've asked for the same sort of thing, but I'd have to hand over to some of our other guys to talk about identity in the cloud. I'm not qualified on that one, I'm afraid. But certainly, we want to be SCCM in the cloud and a little bit better. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for the questions. I really appreciate it. And I'll grab some cards.